歡迎返嚟收聽 2CR 澳洲中文廣播電台。接住落嚟，我哋會播放同新州 Epping 選區自由黨議員 Monica Tudehope 嘅訪問。
Welcome back to 2CR. I'm your host today, Kay, and today we are really pleased to have Monica Tudehope with us. So, hi Monica.
各位早晨，歡迎返到 2CR， 我係今日嘅主持人 Kay。今日我哋非常高興邀請到 Monica Tudehope 議員上嚟接受我哋訪問。Monica 你好。
Hello, thank you for having me.
你好，多謝你哋邀請我。
Yeah, and Monica is a member for Epping and the Shadow Minister for Finance and Western Sydney. And it's been about 6 months since you were last with us. And a lot has happened across Epping and Western Sydney since then. So today we'd like to catch up on some of the latest developments in your electorate.
Great.
And talk about your work as Shadow Minister for Finance and Western Sydney. And also look at some for the broader issue facing New South Wales as we move closer to the next state election.
Monica 係 Epping 選區嘅州議員，同時亦係新州影子財政部長同埋影子西悉尼事務部長。距離你上一次嚟我哋節目大概已經有6個月，呢段時間 Epping 以至成個西悉尼都有唔少新發展。所以今日我哋想同你跟進一下選區近期嘅情況，亦想傾下你作為影子財政部長同影子西悉尼事務部長嘅工作。另外，隨住下一屆新州州選越嚟越近，我哋亦想同你傾下目前新州面對嘅一啲比較廣泛嘅議題。
Great, fantastic. Let's go.
好啊，太好啦，我哋開始啦。
So let's start.
Yeah.
So there has been continued housing and population growth around Epping, right? And traffic congestion is still a major concern. So especially around Epping Bridge and along Pennant Hills Road. So what do you see as the biggest problem with the current road network?
好，我哋開始。Epping 一帶嘅房屋發展同人口一直增加，交通擠塞仍然係一個主要問題，特別係 Epping Bridge 同 Pennant Hills Road 一帶。你覺得目前道路網絡最大嘅問題係咩
？So Pennant Hills Road in Carlingford in my electorate is the only road nationally in the top 10 most dangerous roads. So the only Sydney road in the top 10 most dangerous roads. So all the other roads were in Melbourne and it was the only Sydney road to make it into this top 10 list, which is really concerning for me and for the people that live in Carlingford. So we've got quite a number of major roads that are very congested that haven't been able to keep up with the amount of the number of people that have moved into the area. And it's a number of interventions are needed to kind of improve safety. So sometimes that can be the installation of traffic lights, for example. So instead of people being able to turn whenever they want, that there are actually traffic lights better controlling the flow of traffic. So I've been speaking to the Roads Minister about installing traffic lights or roundabouts at key points of those major roads to try and improve safety. Two that I would like to nominate in particular, so Beecroft Road, Major Road, Kirkham Street is an intersection. I'd really love to see traffic lights there, and I'd also love to see traffic lights installed at the intersection of Pennant Hills Road and Evans Road. I think safety has to be a really big priority, particularly as the suburbs grow, and that's why I have been fighting for improvements to those major roads to improve safety for the residents.
喺我嘅選區入面 Carlingford 嘅 Pennant Hills Road 係全澳10大最危險道路入面唯一一條上榜嘅悉尼道路。換句話講，全澳10大最危險道路入面，佢係唯一一條喺悉尼嘅道路。其他上榜嘅道路全部都喺墨爾本，而佢係唯一一條入到10大嘅悉尼道路。對我嚟講，同埋對住喺 Carlingford 嘅居民嚟講，呢個情況都非常令人擔心。我哋區內有唔少主要道路都非常擠塞，而呢啲道路一直都追唔上區內人口增長嘅速度，所以我哋需要採取一系列唔同措施改善道路安全。有時其中一個方法就係加裝交通燈。例如唔再俾駕駛者任何時候都自己決定幾時轉彎，而係透過交通燈更有效咁控制整體車流。所以我一直都有同道路部長溝通，希望可以喺呢啲主要道路一啲關鍵位置加裝交通燈或者迴旋處，改善道路安全。當中有2個地方我特別想提出，第一個就係 Beecroft Road 呢條主要道路同 Kirkham Street 嘅交界，我真係非常希望嗰度可以加裝交通燈。另外，我亦非常希望 Pennant Hills Road 同 Evans Road 嘅交界可以加裝交通燈。 我認為道路安全一定要成為一個非常重要嘅優先事項，特別係隨住呢啲地區繼續發展。所以我一直都有爭取改善呢啲主要道路，希望提升區內居民嘅道路安全。
Thank you so much. And so you've recently been holding cost of living support sessions with Service NSW in Epping, right? So from the people you've been speaking to, where are households feeling the most financial pressure at the moment?
好，多謝你。你最近亦都喺 Epping 同 Service NSW 舉辦咗一啲生活成本資訊活動。以你最近接觸居民嘅情況嚟睇，而家一般家庭最大嘅經濟壓力主要係邊幾方面
？Yeah. When I'm out speaking to voters, the number one concern I hear from people is just the cost of everything going up. I've also take every opportunity to hear directly from the people that I represent through surveys or through petitions, and they're also telling me consistently that the cost of things like groceries, electricity, rent, they're the biggest, and their mortgage, they're the biggest costs in their lives. So they're really concerned that each time they're kind of thinking about their family budget, that everything is going up in cost, particularly groceries and particularly electricity. So I held that cost of living session to be able to sort of communicate to people that there are things that they can get from government to help make their life a bit easier and to help make their budget go a bit further. Really well attended. I was really happy with it. But the biggest thing we need to do isn't just offer a single rebate or a single voucher. We actually need to get the economy growing. If we can get the New South Wales economy growing again, then wages can grow. We can get inflation under control. If we can get wages to grow and get inflation under control, that will be the most meaningful thing for people in terms of their family budget and in terms of how they can manage that family budget and the cost of living.
Yeah.
係，當我同選民傾偈嘅時候，我聽得最多，亦都係大家最擔心嘅一件事，就係所有嘢都越嚟越貴。我亦會把握每一個機會，透過問卷、調查或者請願等唔同方式，直接聽我所代表嘅居民有咩意見。而佢哋一直都好一致咁同我講，買好、電費、租金同埋供樓都係佢哋生活入面最大筆嘅開支。所以大家真係非常擔心，因為每一次當佢哋重新計自己屋企盤數嘅時候，都會發現樣樣嘢都加緊價，特別係抹屁同電費。所以我舉辦咗嗰場生活成本資訊活動，希望可以話俾居民知道，其實政府有一啲支援係佢哋可以申請到，可以幫佢哋稍為減輕生活壓力，亦令屋企嘅預算可以用得耐啲。嗰場活動有好多人參加，我真係非常開心。但係我哋真正需要做嘅唔單止係提供一次性補貼或者派一張一次性優惠券，我哋真正要做嘅係令經濟重新增長。如果我哋可以令新州經濟再次增長，人工就可以增加，同時我哋亦可以控制通脹。如果人工可以增加，而通脹又可以控制落嚟，我認為呢個先至係對居民最實際、最有意義嘅幫助。無論係佢哋屋企盤數，定係平時點樣管理家庭開支、應付生活成本，呢啲先至係真正重要嘅事情。
Yeah, totally agree. So, as Shadow Minister for Finance, you've called for a Supreme Court review into whether stamp duty has been correctly indexed in New South Wales.
Yeah.
So, can you explain what your concerns are about this issue and what you believe needs to happen next?
我都非常認同。作為影子財政部長，你之前曾經要求最高法院審視新州嘅 stamp duty， 即係印花稅，係咪有按照正確方式做指數化調整？你可唔可以解釋一下你對呢個問題主要有咩憂慮？同埋你認為下一步應該點做？
Sure. So for those not familiar, when you buy a house, you have to pay a tax to the state government called stamp duty. It originally came out of stamping the actual contract. So it's a very kind of old tax that was introduced a long time ago. When it was introduced, there were brackets that determine exactly how much stamp duty that you have. And those stamp duty brackets are fixed, which means that as properties became more and more expensive, people were paying more and more stamp duty. So, 20 years ago, you might have paid $60,000 and now you pay $90,000 because of inflation. So something that the Liberals did back in 2019 was to index the brackets so that you weren't paying more just because of inflation. Now, we believe that the Revenue Commissioner hasn't interpreted that law correctly and that he is indexing the brackets in the wrong way, and that's why we're asking for the Supreme Court to make a ruling on the best way to be indexing those brackets. We want ultimately people to be paying less tax, and we don't want them to be caught out just because inflation is high. Bracket creep is a very real thing for lots of taxes. This was a reform that was introduced in 2019, and we'd like to see it implemented properly, and ultimately we'd like to see more people get into their first home, and if that means paying a little bit less stamp duty to be able to afford that first home, that's what we want to achieve. It's a little bit complicated, but I think the thing for people to remember is less tax. I want you to pay less tax.
當然可以。對一啲唔熟悉呢個制度嘅人嚟講，當你買一層樓嘅時候，你需要向州政府交一項稅，叫做 stamp duty， 即係印花稅。佢最初點解叫 stamp duty？ 其實係因為以前真係要喺實體合約上面蓋印。所以呢個其實係一項非常古老嘅稅，已經存在咗好耐。當呢項稅最初推出嘅時候，政府設立咗唔同嘅稅階，而呢啲稅階會決定你究竟要交幾多印花稅。但問題係呢啲印花稅嘅稅階係固定嘅，即係話隨住樓價越升越高，大家要交嘅印花稅亦都會越嚟越多。例如20年前你可能要交6萬蚊，但而家因為通脹，你可能要交9萬蚊。自由黨喺2019年做咗一件事，就係將呢啲稅階做指數化調整，咁樣你就唔會純粹因為通脹而要交更多稅。而家我哋認為 Revenue Commissioner 即係稅務專員並冇正確理解呢項法律，我哋認為佢目前調整呢啲稅階嘅方法係唔正確嘅，所以我哋先至要求最高法院作出裁決，確定究竟點樣調整呢啲稅階先至係正確嘅做法。我哋最終希望見到嘅就係居民可以交少啲稅，我哋唔希望居民純粹因為通脹高企就被逼要交更多稅。稅階與升即係 bracket creep， 其實喺好多唔同稅項入面都係一個非常實際嘅問題。呢項改革喺2019年推出，我哋希望見到佢可以得到正確落實。最終我哋希望有更多人可以買到自己第一層樓。如果咁樣可以令佢哋交少啲印花稅，令佢哋更加負擔得起自己第一層樓，呢個就係我哋希望做到嘅事情。呢個問題的確有少少複雜，不過我覺得大家最需要記住嘅一件事就係交少啲稅。我希望你可以交少啲稅。
Yeah. So the NSW Liberals have proposed raising the payroll tax threshold from 1.2 million to 1.5 million.
Yeah.
So what do you think this change would mean for business and jobs, and how would a coalition government balance this tax relief with the need to continue funding essential public services?
係，最近新州自由黨提出將 payroll tax 即係工資稅嘅門檻由120萬澳元提高到150萬澳元。你認為呢個改動對企業同就業機會會有咩影響？另外，如果聯盟黨政府提供呢項稅務減免，又會點樣確保仍然有足夠資金維持必要嘅公共服務
？Great question. So I spoke a little bit before about the importance of growing the economy. It's something that I will always speak about because I think at the end of the day, people being in secure jobs, well-paying jobs, having an income, those things are so important to people's quality of life, and a really thriving New South Wales economy actually gives us the taxes to be able to fund services. We want businesses in New South Wales to be able to grow. We want them to take on staff, but each time a business hires staff, depending on the amount of wages that they pay, they might actually have to pay payroll tax. So each person that they're hiring, they then owe money to the state government. We want the threshold before they start paying that tax to be increased to 1.5 million. We want we want businesses to employ people and not have to be penalised for employing people. Or we want them to pay their existing staff more wages and then not necessarily have to be penalised by paying tax. So if we can increase that threshold, we're allowing businesses to take on more people, to pay their people more before they even have to pay the government taxes. I think ultimately that's a really good thing because more people in employment or more people in higher paying jobs is an indication of a really healthy economy. We want the New South Wales private sector to be doing more of the heavy lifting in terms of economic growth. And so we think that the benefit to small businesses, the so what of doing something like this is the growth that comes from being able to hire people and to give people more wages. And that's why we really want to be able to deliver for small businesses in New South Wales. Now, you've raised also the need to be able to deliver essential services, and that's a really important part of a state government's job, to be able to deliver the health, the hospitals, the police, the schools. That challenge is one of budget management. You really have to think about how much money is coming in and how much money needs to go out. There's a challenge to always be making the services we deliver the most cost efficient as possible. I think taxpayers are right to have an expectation that government isn't wasting their tax money, that they're delivering those services in the most cost-efficient way possible. But I think there's also something to be said that if you can get the economy to grow, it sounds a bit counterintuitive, but in fact, businesses growing can get you more of that payroll tax revenue anyway. If businesses aren't growing, if they're not sort of employing more people or paying higher wages, they're only going to stay at a certain amount of payroll tax revenue that they give into government. The more that we can get the economy to thrive, the more revenue that can actually come into the government's coffers to be able to deliver those really efficient services.
呢個係一個好好嘅問題。頭先我都有講到推動經濟增長有幾重要，而呢樣嘢我相信我會一直講落去。因為我認為歸根究底，一個人有一份穩定嘅工作，有一份人工唔錯嘅工作，同埋有穩定收入，對生活質素真係非常重要。而一個真正蓬勃發展嘅新州經濟，實際上亦可以為政府帶嚟稅收，令我哋有能力為公共服務提供資金。我哋希望新州嘅企業可以發展，我哋希望企業可以請更多人。但係每一次當一間企業請人，視乎佢支付嘅工資總額，佢就有可能需要交 payroll tax。換句話講，企業每請多一個人，就可能要向州政府交多啲錢。所以我哋希望企業開始要交呢項稅之前嘅門檻可以提高到150萬澳元。我哋希望企業可以請多啲人，而唔係因為請人而受到懲罰。又或者我哋希望企業可以比現有員工更高人工，而唔會因為咁樣就要承受額外嘅稅務負擔。所以如果我哋可以提高呢個門檻，企業就可以請多啲人，亦可以俾員工更高人工，而喺未達到門檻之前都唔需要向政府交呢項稅。我認為最終呢個係一件非常好嘅事，因為更多人有工返，或者更多人有人工更高嘅工作，都係一個健康經濟體嘅重要指標。我哋希望新州嘅私營經濟可以喺推動經濟增長方面發揮更大作用。所以我哋認為呢項措施對小型企業帶嚟嘅好處就係佢哋可以請多啲人，可以俾員工更高人工，而由此帶嚟嘅經濟增長亦會令整體經濟受惠。所以我哋真係希望可以喺呢方面支持新州嘅小型企業。你頭先亦都有提到，我哋需要繼續提供必要嘅公共服務。呢個當然係州政府工作入面非常重要嘅一部分。州政府需要提供醫療服務、醫院、警察、學校等等，而當中嘅挑戰就係點樣管理好個預算。你真係要睇清楚究竟有幾多錢收入，同時又有幾多錢需要使。另一個一直存在嘅挑戰就係我哋要確保政府提供嘅服務盡可能做到最具成本效益。我認為納稅人有權期望政府唔會浪費佢哋交嘅稅，佢哋亦有權期望政府用最具成本效益嘅方式提供服務。但我亦認為，如果你可以令經濟增長，其實仲有另一點值得留意。聽落可能有少少違反直覺，但事實上企業增長最終反而可以令政府收到更多 payroll tax。如果企業唔增長，如果佢哋唔請更多人，亦唔加人工，咁佢哋可以向政府繳交嘅 payroll tax 就只會維持喺某一個水平。我哋愈能夠令經濟蓬勃發展，政府實際上就愈有機會得到更多收入，而呢啲收入就可以進入政府庫房，用嚟提供真正有效率嘅公共服務。
Agree, totally agree. So Western Sydney's hospitals and emergency departments, you mentioned, are under growing pressure as the region's population continue to increase.
Mm-hmm.
So where do you see the biggest pressure points in the health system? And also what need to change to make sure the services can keep pace with the growth?
某程度上我都同意，你頭先亦提到醫院，隨住西悉尼人口繼續增加，西悉尼嘅醫院同急症室正面對越嚟越大嘅壓力。你認為目前醫療系統最大嘅壓力點喺邊度？另外，要作出啲咩改變先可以確保呢啲服務追得上人口增長
？Yeah, this is a really big priority of mine. I am very big on ensuring that for all the families that live, not just in my electorate, but in Western Sydney, that they're getting really good service when they present themselves to a hospital. And the data for emergency departments in Western Sydney hospitals, and it's not just Western Sydney hospitals, but I am the shadow for Western Sydney, so that's something that's a part of my focus. When people are presenting themselves to Western Sydney emergency departments, they're having to wait really long time. Now, I have a baby, obviously, and if you're a mum and you have to take your child to emergency department and you're having to wait a really long time, that's a really stressful experience for people. And I have heard directly from parents about being turned away or being told that you don't actually have an emergency. And I think we need people's experiences of the emergency department to be that their concerns are taken seriously, that they feel like they're going to get seen. And look, one of the biggest challenges, obviously, for the government, and I think they've acknowledged this challenge, is that people are stuck in emergency for longer because they can't get the beds in the main hospital because we have challenges around needing to get patients seen by the aged care system or the NDIS system. So I acknowledge that the government is aware of the issues. I think they could just be doing a better job of negotiating with Canberra. So the federal government is responsible for both the aged care system and the NDIS system. There is a Labor state government and a Labor federal government, and we just think they could be doing a much better job of negotiating better outcomes for our health system so that when people are presenting to emergency departments, they're getting seen in a timely manner, they can get a bed, and that their experience, particularly if you're a parent of young children, that experience is one where you feel your concerns are taken very seriously and that your child is going to be looked after.
呢個係一個我非常重視嘅議題。我非常重視一樣嘢，就係要確保所有家庭，唔單止係住喺我選區嘅家庭，而係所有住喺西悉尼嘅家庭，當佢哋去醫院嘅時候，都可以得到好好嘅服務。從西悉尼醫院急症室嘅數據嚟睇，當然呢個唔單止係西悉尼醫院面對嘅問題，不過我係影子西悉尼事務部長，所以呢方面自然係我其中一個工作重點。而家居民去到西悉尼嘅急症室，往往都要等非常之耐。我自己都有一個 BB， 好明顯，如果你係一位媽媽，要帶自己個小朋友去急症室，仲要等好長時間，對任何人嚟講都係一個非常大壓力嘅經歷。而且我亦直接聽過一啲家長同我講，佢哋試過被拒絕，又或者有人同佢哋講，你呢個其實唔算係緊急情況。我認為我哋需要確保居民去到急症室嘅時候會感受到自己嘅憂慮係有人認真對待，佢哋需要知道自己會得到診治。當然，目前政府面對其中一個最大嘅挑戰，而我認為政府自己都承認呢個問題，就係病人需要喺急症室留更加長時間，原因係佢哋未必可以喺醫院主要病房入面得到病床。而其中一個原因就係目前將部分病人轉去老年護理系統或者 NDIS 系統方面存在一啲困難，所以我承認政府係知道呢啲問題，但我認為佢哋同坎培拉協商方面可以做得更加好。因為聯邦政府同時負責老年護理系統同 NDIS 系統，而家新州係工黨政府，聯邦亦都係工黨政府，所以我哋認為佢哋應該可以做得更加好，透過協商為我哋嘅醫療系統爭取更好嘅結果。咁樣居民去到急症室嘅時候，就可以喺合理時間內得到診治，佢哋可以得到病床。而佢哋成個求醫過程，特別係如果你係一個年幼小朋友嘅父母，應該令你感受到你嘅憂慮真係有人認真對待，而你個小朋友亦會得到妥善照顧。
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And so last time, you described Western Sydney International Airport as a major opportunity that could help create what you call the third CBD, right?
Yeah.
So with the airport, Bradfield, and major housing developments all processing at the same time, how do you see that vision developing now? And what does Western Sydney still need to make sure local communities fully benefit from that growth?
好多謝你嘅分享。上一次訪問嘅時候，你曾經形容西悉尼國際機場係一個非常重要嘅機遇，可以幫助建立你所講嘅第三 CBD。而家機場 Bradfield 同埋大型房屋發展項目都喺同一時間推進。你而家點樣睇呢個願景嘅發展？悉尼仲需要啲咩先可以確保當地社區真正從呢一輪增長入面受惠？
Yeah, so there are two things for me. One, we need to make sure that there are jobs in Western Sydney. So I think the latest plan from the state government around the growth of Sydney didn't necessarily have as many jobs in Western Sydney as there were in other parts of Sydney. So we want people to be able to work... Oh, sorry, Papa. We want people to be able to work close to where they live. And so we need those jobs to be in Western Sydney, and they can't just be in warehouses, right? Like I think we need high-tech jobs, we need jobs in advanced manufacturing, and we need some sense of a plan where there is really deep thought that goes into what are the types of jobs that we want in Western Sydney. The other challenge, I think, as we kind of create these third cities as well is what is the sense of community? Parramatta is Sydney's second CBD, and there's been a really fantastic drive over the last decade to make that a community as well as a city. So, for example, it's going to have a new powerhouse museum open, it's got a stadium, and then all the suburbs around can kind of benefit from those cultural elements as well as all of the jobs that are in Parramatta as well. So I want to see a real focus on where are we creating the jobs, what types of jobs are we creating, and what is the sense of community that is in the suburbs and in the cities that we're kind of creating outside of just the CBD.
對我嚟講，有兩樣嘢非常重要。第一，我哋需要確保西悉尼有足夠嘅工作機會。我認為州政府最近公布嘅悉尼發展規劃喺西悉尼創造嘅工作職位未必好似悉尼其他地區咁多。我哋希望大家可以喺近自己屋企嘅地方返工，所以我哋需要喺西悉尼創造更多工作機會，而且呢啲工作唔可以淨係得貨倉工作，係咪？我認為我哋需要高科技嘅工作，我哋需要先進製造業嘅工作，而且我哋需要有一套真正嘅規劃，我哋需要認真深入去諗，究竟我哋希望喺西悉尼創造啲咩類型嘅工作。我認為當我哋建立呢啲所謂第三城市嘅時候，另一個挑戰就係我哋點樣建立一種社區感。你知道 Parramatta 本身係一座城市，亦係悉尼嘅第二個 CBD。而過去10年，我哋見到有好多積極嘅努力，希望除咗將 Parramatta 打造成一座城市之外，同時亦將佢建立成一個真正嘅社區。例如 Parramatta 即將有一座全新嘅 Powerhouse Parramatta 開幕，嗰度亦有一座體育場。所以周邊地區都可以從呢啲文化設施入面受惠，同時亦可以受惠於 Parramatta 創造出嚟嘅工作機會。所以我希望見到未來真正集中思考幾樣嘢，我哋喺邊度創造工作，我哋創造緊啲咩類型嘅工作，同埋當我哋建立呢啲新市區同城市嘅時候，除咗淨係諗人工同收入之外，究竟可以建立一種點樣嘅社區感？
I really learned a lot when chat with you.
每次同你傾偈，我真係都學到好多嘢。
Oh, thank you. I take my job very seriously, so I really like to sort of put thought into how it is that I can best represent the people of Epping and Western Sydney as well.
Yeah.
多謝你，我真係非常認真對待自己嘅工作，所以我好鍾意認真去諗，究竟我要點樣做先可以最好咁代表益平選區嘅居民，同埋成個西悉尼嘅居民。
And also the airport will open before the Western Sydney Airport Metro.
Yes.
And even once the metro opens, passenger traveling toward the Sydney CBD will still need to connect through St. Mary's.
Mm-hmm.
So for your perspective, what does Western Sydney need in terms of both short-term and long-term transport connects to make sure the airport work well for the wider city?
係另外，西悉尼機場將會早過西悉尼機場 Metro 開通，即使 Metro 開通之後，要去悉尼 CBD 嘅乘客仍然需要中途轉車。所以從你嘅角度嚟睇，無論短期定長期，西悉尼喺交通連接方面仲需要啲咩，先可以確保呢個機場真正服務到成個城市
？Well, we as Liberals want to deliver more metro. I think that people who catch the metro at the moment know what a fantastic piece of infrastructure it is. They have really transformed Epping, where I am representing. It's such a fantastic piece of public transport infrastructure. So we're very keen to see that other parts of Western Sydney will also benefit from the metro. So we're very committed to building more metros, which unfortunately the current government has said that they are not very committed to, and that they're not going to be able to deliver those metros for the people who live in Western Sydney. That means the challenge, I guess, is also delivering. If you don't have the metros and you don't have those connections, and we don't have a connected metro network, it's incumbent on the government to be delivering more buses. And buses are a big thing for my community, insofar as having those really good connections to those major modes of transport and having people be able to get from a suburb like North Rocks to Epping train station. That's going to be the challenge also for the suburbs around the airport, is how do you connect those suburbs through to the major hubs of transport so that people's experience of arriving from Sydney, if you're a tourist coming into Sydney and you are arriving at Western Sydney, we want that to be a really seamless experience for people, and we want their experience of Sydney to be a really good one, and that's going to mean that seamless public transport. But it's also, like I said in the previous answer, we want lots of jobs to be out near the Western Sydney precinct, and you've got to be able to get people to their jobs as well. We don't want people to have really long commute times. So we want to see more metros built, and I think that lots of people in Sydney do as well.
我哋自由黨希望興建更多 metro。我認為而家有搭 metro 嘅人都知道呢項基建有幾出色。metro 已經真正改變咗我所代表嘅 Epping， 佢係一項非常出色嘅公共交通基建。所以我哋非常希望西悉尼其他地區都可以享受到 metro 帶嚟嘅好處，因此我哋非常支持興建更多 metro。但好可惜，目前政府已經表示佢哋對興建呢啲 metro 並冇咁積極，佢哋亦表示未必可以為住喺西悉尼嘅居民提供呢啲 metro 項目。我諗呢個亦帶出另一個挑戰，如果冇 metro 冇呢啲連接，而我哋亦冇一個互相連接嘅 metro 網絡，咁政府就有責任提供更多巴士服務。巴士對我嘅社區嚟講非常重要，因為我哋要確保居民有良好嘅交通連接，可以去到主要嘅公共交通同交通樞紐。例如，居民需要可以由 North Rocks 呢啲地區去到 Epping 火車站。而對西悉尼機場周邊嘅地區嚟講，呢個同樣會係一個挑戰。究竟你點樣將周邊社區連接去主要交通樞紐？咁樣，當人哋嚟到悉尼，例如你係一個嚟悉尼旅行嘅遊客，而你抵達嘅係西悉尼，我哋希望成個過程對你嚟講係真正暢順無縫銜接嘅。我哋希望你對悉尼有一個好嘅體驗，而要做到呢一點，就代表我哋需要一套無縫銜接嘅公共交通系統。但正如我上一個答案所講，我哋亦希望喺西悉尼機場一帶創造大量工作機會，而我哋亦一定要確保居民可以方便咁去到自己返工嘅地方。我哋唔希望大家每日都要花好長時間返工放工，所以我哋希望見到更多 metro 興建，而我相信好多悉尼居民都有同樣嘅諗法。
Yeah, awesome. So also like last time you talk about Australia policy environment are getting fragmented.
Yeah.
And also explain why some voters are moving away from the major parties towards parties like One Nation. Mm-hmm. So as we move closer to the NSW election, what do you think the NSW Liberal Party's relationship with the One Nation? And what should the relationship should look like? And also, where do you think the party should draw the line?
上一次你亦有講到澳洲目前嘅政治環境正變得越嚟越碎片化，你當時亦解釋過點解部分選民開始離開主要政黨，轉而支持 One Nation 呢類政黨。隨住我哋越嚟越接近下一屆新州州選，你認為新州自由黨同 One Nation 之間應該係一種點樣嘅關係？另外，你認為自由黨應該喺邊度劃清界線？
So I am a Liberal, and I'm a very proud Liberal, and I want the offering to the people of Epping to be a Liberal one. I will always be firmly saying, I stand for the Liberal Party, and here are the policies that the Liberal Party stands for, and here is what our offering to you is. That being said, I understand that people are frustrated right now. I think they are looking at what's on offer to them and thinking about they want politicians to be really relevant to their life. So the challenge that I find in my role as being the MP is making sure that I'm constantly in touch with the voters, the constituents that I represent, to say, what's your number one concern? What is concerning you day to day? Like, how can I help you in my role? I think if we're really in touch with people's interests and they're less frustrated, then there's going to be less disruption to the political environment. So yeah, really I think it's kind of offering them something that I think is firmly liberal and that I believe is an offering about families. It'll be an offering about creating community and about growing the economy. I think those things are really relevant to people's lives. They are firmly liberal principles and that we'll be able to offer them. We've got some challenges around making sure people are hearing those messages, but I think that's an opportunity as much as it's a challenge. And then I think we have to acknowledge people's frustrations and why they may occasionally be frustrated with government.
我係自由黨人，而且我係一個非常自豪嘅自由黨人。我希望我哋向 Epping 居民提供嘅選擇係一個真正屬於自由黨嘅選擇。我會一直非常清楚咁講，我代表自由黨，呢啲係自由黨支持嘅政策，而呢個就係我哋向你提出嘅選擇。不過話雖如此，我明白而家有好多人都感到好挫折。我認為佢哋而家會睇下政治上究竟有啲咩選擇，亦會思考佢哋希望政治人物真正關心一啲同自己日常生活有關嘅事情。所以對我嚟講，作為一名州議員，我喺呢個角色入面其中一個挑戰，就係要確保自己一直同選民同我所代表嘅居民保持聯繫。我要問佢哋，你而家最關心啲咩？每日有啲咩事情令你擔心？喺我呢個位置上，我可以點樣幫到你？我認為如果我哋真正了解居民嘅需要同埋佢哋關心嘅事情，佢哋嘅挫折感自然會少一啲，咁樣政治環境受到嘅衝擊亦會少一啲。所以對我嚟講，真正重要嘅就係向佢哋提出一個我認為非常清晰、真正屬於自由黨嘅選擇，而我相信呢個選擇會關乎家庭，會關乎建立社區，亦會關乎推動經濟增長。我認為呢啲事情全部都同大家嘅生活非常有關，亦都係非常清晰嘅自由黨原則，而呢個就係我哋可以向選民提出嘅選擇。目前我哋的確面對一啲挑戰，就係要確保居民真正聽到呢啲信息，但我認為呢個既係挑戰，同時亦係機會。另外，我認為我哋亦必須承認，而家居民確實有一種挫折感，我哋需要理解點解佢哋有時會對政府感到不滿。
I agree. And finally, the last question. So with the next NSW election now less than 7 months away, what do you see as the biggest challenge the NSW Liberal Party still need to address? And what does the party need to do to convince voters that it's ready to govern again?
我都認同。最後一條問題，而家距離下一屆新州州選已經唔夠7個月，你認為新州自由黨目前仲需要解決嘅最大挑戰係咩？另外，自由黨要做啲咩先可以說服選民相信你哋已經準備好再次執政
？Yeah, I mean, I think we definitely are ready to govern again. We've got a fantastic leader in Kelly Sloan. We've got a really strong team that is made up of people that are a bit more experienced in government and then the other people that haven't been in government before but have got really fresh ideas. I think we also have people whose lives are really relevant to the lives of the people that we're representing, and that we are sort of a party that is firmly grounded in wanting to deliver for families and for communities. We of course, need to have policies that appeal to people, and I think we will have policies that appeal to people, and we've started to demonstrate already our commitment to growing the economy by cutting taxes, and we've also kind of demonstrated our commitment to making sure that there is affordable housing and that the way that we go about kind of creating that housing is done in a way that reflects the wants and needs of the community. So we will have lots of offerings of policy to people that I think is really relevant, and that will come from people's experiences and from the way that they are really dedicated to representing the people that they currently represent. So I'm confident that, you know, we have a great team, we've got a great leader, and that we'll have some really great offerings to people when it comes to policy, and that they'll see that it's, you know, really worth voting for the Liberal Party.
我認為我哋絕對已經準備好再次執政。我哋有一位非常出色嘅領袖 Kelly Sloan， 我哋亦有一支非常強大嘅團隊。團隊入面有一啲人有比較豐富嘅政府經驗，亦有一啲人從來未參與過政府，但佢哋可以帶嚟一啲非常新鮮嘅想法。我認為我哋亦有一啲團隊成員，佢哋自己嘅生活同我哋所代表嘅居民嘅生活非常貼近。我哋係一個真正立足於為家庭同社區帶嚟成果嘅政黨。當然，我哋需要有一啲真正吸引到選民嘅政策，而我相信我哋會有呢啲政策。事實上，我哋已經開始展示推動經濟增長嘅決心，例如透過減稅。另外，我哋亦已經展示咗確保住房可負擔性嘅決心，而且我哋希望喺增加住房供應嘅同時，用一種可以反映社區意願同需要嘅方式去做。所以我哋會有好多政策選擇提供俾選民。而我認為呢啲政策都會同居民嘅生活非常有關，呢啲政策亦會來自我哋團隊成員自己嘅經驗，以及佢哋一直以嚟點樣認真代表自己目前服務緊嘅居民。所以我有信心，我哋有一支好好嘅團隊，我哋有一位好好嘅領袖，而喺政策方面，我哋亦會向選民提出一啲非常好嘅選擇。我相信到時選民會認為投票支持自由黨係值得嘅。
Awesome. So I think that's all for today, and thank you for sharing your time and your thoughts with us again.
非常好，我諗我哋今日嘅訪問就到呢度。再次多謝你抽時間嚟到我哋節目，亦多謝你再次同我哋分享你嘅睇法。
Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure to be on 2CR.
多謝你哋邀請我嚟 2CR， 一直都係一件好開心嘅事。